Okay, this is part one of the 30s and Great Depression notes, and so let's get started. All right, so let's talk about the stock market. By the time the 1930s had come around, actually before 1929, about 1.5 million Americans were playing in the stock market. Again, that has to do with a lot of the extra money that was available to them, with higher paying jobs and an industry in America that is doing really well. People have more money, and they have more money to do things like invest or play in the stock market. Along with that came the ability to buy on margin. There's a video link that I'm going to show you that that you can look at to look at more about what buying on margin is. But basically, what happens is they have a small percentage of that to put down to buy their stock, and they get a loan for the rest of it. What led to even more problems was that people were borrowing money from banks to put the small percentage that they had to put down. So they weren't even using their own money to do that, which leads to all sorts of issues in the future. When we talk about why this is important, it's because when we look at what makes stocks valuable, stocks are valuable because the amount of money that is put into them. The more people that invest in a certain stock, that means there's more demand. The more demand creates a higher value for that stock. This is going to be the video link here. I'm not going to attach it into this, but it will be as part of your links that you can look at on the classroom. Okay, let's look at the stock market. Not everyone was getting rich in the stock market. Farmers, unskilled laborers, minorities, basically people that didn't have the money to invest in the market were not doing very well. And these people were having issues in the sense of what they were doing on a daily basis. Remember, farmers have been suffering since the end of World War One. Unskilled laborers and minorities, a lot of these people were found without jobs as industry cut down after World War One, and so through the 1920s, they're not doing as well. And this is going to limit the market for goods. In other words, what people could afford to buy and what they could do. Now, businesses aren't going to recognize this, so what they're going to do is they're going to continue to grow and believe that they can continue to create as much stuff as they can. And of course, then when they do that, it appears to the people who are investing that they're doing well. So again, people continue to invest, again, with borrowed money. So in September of 1929, there was a sell. People began to sell their stock. And of course, when you sell, that means the supply is high and the demand may not be there to support that supply. And when that happens, if the supply is higher than the demand, prices go down. Of course, as prices of stock starts to go down, people who have bought on margin have to sell some of their stock in order to pay back or to pay off the loans that they had when buying on margin. Of course, the more they sell, the more prices continue to fall. The more prices fall, the more they have to sell. This causes a gigantic fall in the market. And for about a month in September, the prices go, from the end of September into October, the prices go up and down. But they could see that the market itself is unstable. Until October 24th, which is known as Black Thursday, there is a large crash. And that crash in the market is a selling that no one can stop. The only thing that really saves it is the weekend. And over the weekend, there is talk to bankers and other people like that who can maybe hopefully support and stop, reinvest some money back into the market to stop this from happening. They come back at on October 28th, the Monday. The selling continues until finally Black Tuesday happens and the stock market crash of 1929 is complete. And people have lost everything. American investors lost their savings. Businesses lost money. No one had the money to spend in the market to try to support it. People with the money those that were very wealthy, had money, didn't put it in the market. They knew better than that. They knew better than to put their money into somewhere that wasn't as secure as that. So they were not going to do that to help figure this out. Now, bank failures happened, and by 1932, a quarter of the nation's workers had lost their jobs. When the banks failed, people lost their savings, even people who didn't play in the market. Why did banks fail? Well, people had borrowed money from the banks to play in the market. Plus, the banks had taken their money that they'd used as profit, usually from people who had put their money into the banks themselves, and they had played in the market as well. And so there's this, like, a pile upon pile upon pile of things happening, these events happening, that once the market started to crash and once it started to fail, it hurt not only the people that were investing, but it hurt the businesses, that hurts the banks, and then of course they in turn hurt themselves and hurt each other, and also hurt people that were smart and said, "Hey, I'm not going to play in the market. I'm just going to keep my money in the banks." Of course, when your bank closes because it has no money, they've lost your money as well. So, what was Hoover's reaction? Remember, Hoover's the president at this time. He's a Republican. He believes that the best way to fix this is to help business. So the Reconstruction Finance Corporation in 1932 is going to go out and they are going to give aid and support to businesses, in the idea that if you can help out the businesses, they will then be able to keep people employed. Keeping people employed will keep the money in their pockets. Money in their pocket means that they will be able to spend it, and the economy will get going and it will be in the right direction. It also allows local governments to borrow money. It allows farm boards to buy crops to help out farmers. So it wasn't just looking at businesses, but what ends up happening is that this isn't enough of a reaction fast enough in order to counteract what has happened with the fall of the market and the depression that is now going to be on hand. The Americans start to blame Hoover for his reaction, saying that it wasn't enough, that what he did was really just to help big business, was to help the rich. It wasn't to help the people that really needed it, and that was the people that were suffering the most. Obviously, when businesses start to fail, the common worker is laid off first to reduce the costs. When you look at business, the biggest cost of any business is the labor, the people that are working there. And so as they start to lay off those workers to reduce costs, of course, those are the people that are everyday people looking at it saying, well, while businesses are still getting money from the government, I'm losing my job. I don't have the things that I had before. So people started reacting to that, calling the slums that they were forced to live into when they lost their homes Hoovervilles, or when they were homeless or jobless, sleeping on a park bench, they covered themselves with a newspaper. Those were called Hoover blankets. If they had their pockets turned inside out to show that they didn't have any money, those were called Hoover flags. Hoover got a lot of the blame for what has happened, but most of it was really because of the 10 years leading up to the Great Depression and the stock crash that was really to blame. In 1924, the U.S. government had decided that they were going to get pensions to World War I veterans. They were going to pay out those pensions in 1943. This was going to allow the people that had served, usually young 20s men in World War I, and they come back and served, that they were going to get basically a retirement, a pension, so that because they had served and done something well for their country, that they were going to be rewarded for that. Obviously, in the 1930s, with the Depression on and the stock crash and the Depression on, the veterans said, hey, I can't wait till 1943 to get that money. I want it now. And so they demanded immediate payment of that pension. Of course, that pension fund was in twofold. One, the government didn't have the money to pay out, and two, weren't going to be forced into it. And a lot of that had to do with how they were supplying or getting that money in the first place. By the summer of 1932, the Bonus Army, as it was called, all these World War I veterans had marched onto Washington, D.C. to demand their money. They set up a Hooverville, or a shanty town, basically on the front lawn of the Capitol, demanding that the government help them. Those that had sacrificed so much in World War I for the country, that the government helped them at that time. And Hoover said, we can't have this. We can't have this on our front lawn. This looks terrible. And so he asked the Army to remove the veterans, the World War I veterans. And when that happened, violence broke out. And because the Army had used what it appeared to be, what it showed in the papers, was that the Army had used violence to remove these troops, and now it looked like Hoover was using his own army against his veterans of his country, and in a way in which was very disrespectful to the fact that they're in there. So this obviously led to more people not agreeing with what was going on with Hoover and how he was handling the situation. So here's a picture you can see of the veterans on their way to Washington, D.C. to complain and look for help from the Bonus Army.